Alright, so I'm back on the Sony TCM-5000EV trying to get this thing knocked out of here as quickly as I possibly can. And one thing I recommend that you do if you have one of these that has like 9,287 wires connected to the circuit board is that you take some good clear still photos, or better yet, take some video from different angles so you can actually see where the wires attach. So the first thing I need to do is just disconnect these three that go back here to the battery compartment. You can see there's a red, black, and a brown, and they connect over here. And you can see the brown connects where it says EXTB, I think, or EXTD right there. And then the red connects there, and the black does connect there. Now I think this has been serviced in the past because it looks like that's not original Sony solder. Also, I'm probably going to have to pull, I believe this is going to be the race head and the bias oscillator right there. So taking some nice clear pictures does make it easier. I did go ahead and make a rudimentary little roadmap right there that tells me where the connections actually need to solder to the board. So just go ahead and go around multiple times with different angles, just in case when you're working on one of these things, if it's been serviced in the past, there's a strong possibility that some of these wires may be fatigued and they may unexpectedly become unsoldered. And so if you end up with a no audio or no control situation of some type, if you shoot video at different angles, you can actually get in here and determine where these wires originally did solder to, and then you can complete your repair on your item. So that's like a free tip Friday, even though it is Sunday at this point. So I'm just going to go ahead and look the board over from different views. Sometimes it helps if you turn on the camera light. This happens to be my cell phone that I'm videoing on right now. And yeah, you can see where I think some of the head wires do attach because it is a 3-head unit. So one might be a playback, one might be a record head. I'm not quite sure at this moment in time. But the main thing I'm after is where the battery leads actually solder to, and they do connect right there. Okay, so there's a nice zoomed in view of the board. So I'm just going to go ahead and pick these off of the board. Well, that one wasn't very nice at all. I'll probably go ahead and actually desolder this and add fresh solder. This looks like it's been rode hard and put away wet several times. Okay, so I'm not quite sure what I'm going to encounter. I don't think there's going to be a lot of unsoldering involved here. I think I had it somewhat open maybe on the last video. I know I didn't put screws back in it. And I think it's just these front switches that are basically hanging me up. I think they did that last time. Just don't want to pull too hard because I know I'm pulling against wires here. And they do have a tie down strap. So I'm just going to go ahead and, how'd they do that? Oh, it's flipped over this way, no wonder. So we'll try to flip that tie down strap up. And that will certainly give me a little more room right there, because I do believe that this board has to come up and then swing out, if I can ever grab it, from the back. I don't think it's going to be too terribly bad, but I'd really like to get this board up and completely out of the way. So I'm checking to see what is actually pulling tight. And there's another tie down strap right there. And right now I'm pulling tight on these two leads right here. And I thought I was going to have to pull them off. Oh, that's actually a ground strap. Okay, that's good because that's a standard Phillips screw that will just pop out easy enough. I put the screw back in just a little tiny bit. And next, yeah, the next one that's pulling tight is this gray one that runs around into the mic 2 amp area. So I think I need to go ahead and unsolder that. Okay, well, I did manage to successfully unsolder a couple of those leads, and I did get the board flipped back all the way so I can actually gain access to the mechanism right here. And I think I can go ahead and pull the mechanism out. I would like to be able to completely service the pinch roller on this unit. So let me go ahead and just show you a couple things of note. I may end up pulling this board loose right there. That is basically the real rotation. It's got that little semiconductor that detects a magnet and knows whether the tape is actually moving or not, and triggers some kind of a auto shutdown mechanism over here on the main board. The switch that lives right here, I'm not sure what that switch is actually for, but as you can see, it has 3 leads precariously soldered to it, white being closest to the bottom or closest to the front of the unit here, an orange lead and a yellow lead. And so if I move this sensor board out of the way, I can actually untape it and just fold it out of the way. I can loosen that screw right there for the main, I believe that's the power switch, and get it up and out of the way, and that's going to prevent more damage as I move this mechanism in and out. So let me go ahead and stop the cell phone recording and then see if this mechanism will actually lift out of here peacefully, because I would really love to be able to get it upside down like this and be able to gain access to the record head, the erase head, and look at the alignment on that. I don't know if I can show you this, but that head, I believe, which is the playback head. If the large silver head is the record head, then that third head is the playback head, and that thing is tilted wildly, so that's going to need most likely some alignment unless it was really, really poorly assembled at the factory. And I'd really like to be able to service this pinch roller right here. Maybe this view will get you a better perspective of just how wild the alignment is. Let me turn off autofocus and I'll try to zoom in. And right there, look at that. So I'll try to get the record head flat like this, and then look at the angle of this head. That is drastically going to affect the playback quality. And there's the erase head flat, the record head flat, and the playback head is tilted at probably maybe a 10 to 20 degree angle right there. So that is going to need to be addressed, and I'm sure there's going to be an adjustment. Yes. So the one side has the spring, and then I believe the adjustment is, well, the adjustment is probably going to be on the spring side most likely, but wow, it is out of whack, I must say. It is out of whack. Anyhow, there's the mechanism up and out. We can go ahead and pull this thing apart, and hopefully it will cooperate very peacefully and allow me to replace all of the belts in the unit. Alright, so instead of going ahead and pulling this board completely out and removing the factory Sony tape, I think I can go ahead and just crack these 3 screws loose that hold down the thrust plate to the flywheels. If you notice, this does have dual flywheels. So it was a very high-end unit meant for very low wow and flutter. And oh, look at the belt. Oh, this is going to make a mess. I might need to grab some gloves. It is just, it's just tangled. How many times does it go around there? Wow, it's actually coming off kinda nicely. Please release. There you go. Good job. Okay. So that is the main drive belt for the motor. And as you can see, some of it is still wrapped around the motor. That's going to be fun to get out. Maybe it'll, no. I was going to say maybe it will remove as peacefully as the belt did from the flywheel. Notice the motor case is floating with a 1 meg ohm resistor to ground right there. So I'm going to spend a couple more minutes trying to get this belt off of here, and we'll come back. One moment. Well, I certainly did manage to get the majority of it out of the pulley. I have not cleaned it yet, which I will hit it with some acetone. And yeah, definitely looks a little bit better. I see some loose belt pieces still rolling around in here that we'll have to work on getting out at a later date. But I need to get the counter belt off, and then there's a couple of other drive belts. We'll have to clean all of the idler wheels right here, idler tires. I know I do not have replacements for those, and I seriously doubt that I'm going to be able to get them, so we'll just have to give them the acetone treatment to get these babies working hopefully as good or as close to new as possible. Alright, well, I decided to just go ahead and dismount the motor completely so that I might be able to get that belt that's completely wrapped around this thing off. And yeah, I'm glad I did, because it would have been a nightmare trying to get this thing out. And there, look at that. Much, much better. Luckily, none of the belt got underneath that in between the pulley and the bushing. So that looks good. Just got to hit it with some acetone, get it cleaned up really good. And I did opt, if I can get these belt pieces out of here. Let me move this out of the way just for a moment. I did opt to go ahead and completely remove the mechanism to make life just a little bit easier. But one thing I have not done yet, and I definitely want to do, I was going to move this out of the way slightly, and these little standoffs are just like living here. So I'm going to put those in my egg crate so I don't lose the standoffs. That keeps the motor basically floating on these little rubber bushings to minimize noise or vibration on the chassis. I did go ahead and pull the counter out completely to remove the counter belt, which does live right there, and yeah, it's definitely due for replacement. So let me see if I've got some belts, and I need to figure out how to get this drive belt off of the main capstan. As you can see, it is very much used up. I should not be able to spin the capstan that free while holding the belt down, and it kind of goes up and under and around and through, and yeah, plays the Sesame Street game. Alright, let me see what I can come up with. Well, that wasn't too terribly bad. I didn't really have to disassemble anything else, but I did get these other two belts out of the mechanism. I just kind of, the one snaked through here underneath, I could get it through that little gap right there, and then with this gently pushed aside, I'm going to move that so this will come back. I could actually get it through that gap right there. So that shouldn't be too bad. So I think what I'm going to do is remove this gear right here with that little C-clip. Hopefully it doesn't go flying. Then I can remove this idler and clean it with acetone. I'll need to go ahead and pull this C-clip loose as well and try to finagle, and I think it'll clear. It's spring loaded, so I think if I unspring it, it'll just barely clear. I think that'll be okay. This one's going to be a no-brainer. Comes off no problem. And Yeah, since the mechanism is out, I don't know if I want to tip it up. I don't think anything's going to fall out at this point. At least I hope not, and if it does, I've got video of it. But then there's the angle of the head. You can see the one that I was talking about previously. Let's try to zoom in on it. And that's as far as I can push it. But yeah, this being a 3-head deck, I do believe this is a stereo head. Wow. So yeah, they've got it set up in a mono configuration. Kind of hard to see. Where they've basically bridged the upper left, as you can see, and the lower right, and then we're feeding audio between the white wire down here and the red wire, so it becomes just a mono head. And then I do believe this is the playback head right there. Severely out of alignment. Look at how bad that thing is. There it is on a flat plane. Very good quality record head, looks like. Very good quality. And a very good quality erase head as well. They don't make them like this anymore. Oh, and I think I see the problem why the head is so far out of alignment. You see that hole right there in the center of your screen? I believe there's supposed to be a screw in that. In fact, there's witness marks of where a screw used to be. So if I take it and I press that down, look at the angle of the head once I press it down. It's almost perfect. I just got to find a screw to put back in there. Well, I went ahead and dug through my little drawer of, these are basically camcorder screws. They're, a lot of them are 1mm screws. Some are like 0.75. I didn't have any short ones, but hope this will work out. There were a couple of very small screws out of the mechanism of the same diameter. Those are 1mm screws. Little shorty guys, and hopefully I can replace one of those with a longer screw somewhere. Okay, sorry about that. I got interrupted. So yeah, when I put the longer screw in, it bottomed out and the mechanism would not slide. But now that the mechanism does actually move, we can take a look at the alignment, and actually it's off in the other direction now because somebody probably tried to adjust the azimuth while that screw is either loose or removed. So now we can go ahead and actually adjust the screw, that spring screw right there, once we get everything back together and have a good playback test. Make sure it plays back good. Normally if the azimuth is off just a little bit, you'll lose high frequencies because the high frequency is most critical with the azimuth. So I had to ask myself, where do you think that screw would be? And I'm going to try to look around the speaker magnet because that is the most likely place that it would land in this unit if it was rolling around loose for any length of time. Of course, being up here on the top of the mechanism, it might have just come out when the door was open and just fell out, and it's basically lost forever. Anyhow, got that problem resolved. Well, I'm going to say we're definitely making some progress on this unit. I did go ahead and pull off all of the idler tires and clean them and deglaze them. They are in much, much better condition. It's going to be kind of hard to show, but they're really, really clean. I cleaned off the pulley and the lower portion where it contacts the idler pulleys. Now, a couple of these did have doubles, and I don't know if you can actually see them down in there. I believe this one right there has a upper idler tire and a lower idler tire. Probably can't get enough light down in there. I did go ahead and clean all the belt grooves in the pulleys. This one does have a secondary small belt groove on the bottom of it. This one does have a secondary, so I believe that one belt runs between here on the bottom of this one, so small and large. Yeah, The main capstan motor has a small belt that, remember, it runs up and around here. Okay, so I haven't cleaned the pulley on the motor yet, but I want to go ahead and try to add just a little droplet of fine machine oil to the motor, and hopefully it will cooperate. There we go. Might be a little more than I anticipated, but it'll get down into the bronze or brass bushing of this motor. And I think there's a very small little washer that is supposed to be pressed down. So I'm probably not going to worry about that too terribly much. Let me get a little razor blade and try to push that down. If I can get in here. Oh, come on, cooperate. Okay, so that basically keeps any dust and dirt or whatnot from getting down into the bushing. So fresh oil has been applied. We just need to give this baby the acetone treatment and clean out the groove of the pulley and get some acetone. So I'm going to take a cotton swab right here and I'm going to try to flatten it out so that it'll get down into the groove of the pulley. Get into the groove. There we go. So I just want to try to clean any contaminants out of there. I mean, it's probably not very dirty. I wouldn't expect there to be anything in there that would adversely affect. Nah, that's nothing. Do the same thing for the clean side, and we'll hit it one more time. That's pretty doggone good right there. Okay, I like it. So I'm going to remount the motor. I got to put the little standoffs back in there on the mechanism, and then we can try to find a replacement belt for this. Hopefully things cooperate. We can move forward with this TCM-5000EV repair. Okay, so while I have it open this far, I just want to go ahead and clean the race head with a cotton swab and some acetone. Man, that thing is actually spotless. We'll clean the record head here. Same thing. Cotton swab and acetone. Yes, you can. It will not hurt the head. This is a good high quality ferrite head. And then this is going to be the playback head here. Give it a nice wipe off. And then the big thing is going to be the pinch roller. This thing has been used many, many times. I want to try to bring the rubber back to life. It becomes glazed over time. And so basically you just got to scrub it to get the oxide out of the rubber. And you know, people are gonna comment, you can't use acetone to clean rubber. Well, yeah, maybe you can't. Like using cotton swabs to clean video heads. Every tape deck I've ever owned has had the acetone treatment, and I've got some out there. I've probably got 20 different tape decks out in my garage that some are made in the early to mid 70s, some in the 80s. Never ever had an adverse reaction to acetone. Just like putting dielectric grease on the mode select switches in VCRs. I've got VCRs made in the mid-80s that are still running today because of this. Okay, so we'll do a final clean once everything is assembled. There's probably a light little bit of grease on the capstan shaft. There should be a washer on here. I think somebody's lost that previously because this did not have any kind of a washer on the capstan shaft. And that basically keeps the oxides from going into the bushing. Now this thing does have somewhere there is a bit of a gap between the actual capstan shaft and the bushing down in here, but that's to be expected when these things get used for so long. Okay, let's remount the motor and basically move on with life. Well, I'm going to start by hopefully inserting the little standoffs. I think these are brass. There's one. There's two. Like I showed previously, you want to remove these because they're not retained like that at all in here. And you just don't want them to fall out and get lost. Trying to do it without getting my head in the way here. So I'm going to start by inserting, let me get this static discharge 1 megohm resistor out of the way. And I do have a flat blade screwdriver. In their infinite wisdom, they opted to use a flat screw in this unit. And I do remember the Sony writing was face up on the motor. Whoopsie doodles. Leaving them a little bit loose to start with. All right, there we go, torqued to factory spec. Anyhow, that is how the motor mounts with the 3 screws. And why they didn't go with Phillips, I have no freaking idea. Okay, so now I need to use this reference, which is out of the service manual, that tells me that this belt should run around the main capstan and then through the counterbalance right here, which is what keeps wow and flutter to a minimum. And then, of course, having the motor at a 90-degree angle even helps reduce wow and flutter. So we need to make sure that we run from the main capstan to the counterbalance to the bottom of the motor, and then from the top of the motor back to the main capstan. Okay, so I do have 2 different belts that I have selected. They have been serviced, which means I gave them the acetone treatment. The first one might be just a hair long, so I'm going to peel this up over the top, and I'm going to say that one's a little bit long. In fact, it peeled itself off. So we'll go to the next one, which is probably about a half an inch shorter. And let me get a little tiny screwdriver here. Hopefully it's still kind of in view for you guys. Whoops. Actually, you know what? It might be easier if I do attach the belt to the motor first, and then bring this one around town, and then we can straighten out all the wrinkles in the belt. So you want to make sure that the belt does run true. So if you look at the top of the belt, you'll see there's a peak, obviously being a square cut belt. And you want that peak to be at the same aspect. And so I need to roll that over. And I think I'm pretty doggone close. I still have a little rotation here. Spin it a little bit. Oh, look at that. Nope, still got a little bit of a twist here. And you just got to run it around a few times to make sure that you have all the twists out of the belt, which I'm still not happy with. Well, I think that's as good as it's going to get. Still looks like there's a quarter twist. Man, what is going on with this thing? Man, it's so close. All right, one moment. Well, for some reason the belt does not want to ride completely true, but I think it's going to work itself out over time. It's true right here, and then I think there's a twist here, and I think that's because the belt that was in the bag had a twist to it, so it just wants to keep untwisting. Hopefully once it gets tension on it, it will right itself, but because of the length right here, I don't think it's going to cause any issues whatsoever. So let's finish putting this thing back together and get it ready for reassembly. So I know that this guy basically goes on right there. Belt goes over the top. There we go, just like that. Now we can put the thrust plate back on it here. I got to reorient everything to make it fit. One moment. All right, so I have the mechanism semi-installed back in the chassis, but one of the things that I want to do is clean the power switch right here, which is very, very easily done with a simple sheet of paper, and just put it in between the contacts, squeeze the contacts together, and then just drag it through a few times. That's actually going to polish the contacts. And you can see all the crud that it did remove. So the contacts are nice and clean. So now the switch needs to be remounted. All right, let's see if this will cooperate. Everything is at such a weird angle to get down in here. And there is an adjustment on this. No, it's keyed, so we're good. Okay. Okay, switch has been remounted. Just hit one of the buttons and make sure that it does close the contacts. And it does. Happy with that. Now we can get the thrust plate remounted. Trying to get the board back into position is some of the funnest part. No clearance issues, that's good. There we go, torque to spec. There's about 20 thousandths play there. And about the same on that one. So I'm not going to adjust those. They're factory set. I think they're close enough at this point. I do need to attach the 3 leads that I did detach from the switch previously. So I'm going to go ahead and research the video so I get the colors correct and reattach those. One moment. And I definitely want to go ahead and shoot the record play switch with the little deoxit D5. If I can get it up in here. Hopefully it'll run through since I do have it facing down. Okay, good with that. Well, let's go ahead and throw this thing back together, and yeah. Well, that's not quite it. So I want to go ahead and shoot the pots with some deoxit F5, which is meant for carbon-based pots. Does a tremendous job of cleaning these pots that have been neglected for years, which I'm sure these have. And we'll go ahead and hit the switches with some F5. If I can get down in there, that is. All right, let's try to assemble this thing now. Okay, so I have it loosely assembled. I'm going to apply power right now. I have it in the play mode. And so I want to go ahead and wipe off these idlers because I noticed a couple of droplets of deoxit might have gotten on there. And so it's going to shut down because there's no real rotation right here. And it did, so I have to remove power, power off, power on again. I just want to wipe off the belts. And it'll shut down again in a few seconds. Because it does not sense real rotation at this point. So let me go ahead and try to find the fast forward and or rewind modes here. Okay, so that appears to be fast forward. Go down here and wipe off that idler right there. Because there might be fingerprints on it as well. And then stop. And I know that one got a bit of deoxit on it, so we'll wipe that one down. And it stopped. Remove power. Reapply power so that it will start again. Okay, I'm happy with that. So next thing you should see is this thing somewhat reassembled, at least with the main board in place here. Okay, well there it is, back together, the Sony TCM-5000EV, working great once again. All the belts have been replaced, all the idlers have been cleaned, the controller, the capstan, everything's been adjusted. It works great. I did try the 3-head operation in recording. It does play back on the 3rd head, that's perfectly fine. Now in normal operation it does play back on the main head, which is great. It only uses the 3rd head in the monitor mode when you're recording, so the azimuth of that is good. It sounded great. Yeah, that's it. It's ready to go. I'm going to ship this back to my customer, who I believe lives in Burlingame, California, and I think he should be very, very happy with this unit. Go ahead and leave me a question, a comment, a concern down below, good or bad. I try to respond to the comments when I have time. While you're down there, if you could please hit that subscribe button and like this video. It does help my channel grow. You can follow me on social media, Facebook, Instagram, Twitter at NorCal715. You can email me, NorCal715videos@gmail.com. As of right now, which is October 2023, if you want to contact me, please leave me a comment in one of the videos. That's probably the best way to contact me. I'm trying to get caught up on emails. I had a few answered, but it's just been so long since the daughter's accident. It's taken so much time, and I've just been so busy trying to get this stuff knocked out as fast as I possibly can. Remember, with your help, we can try to get these things out of the landfill, out of the recycle bin, and out of the e-waste facility. Everyone, thank you for making it to the end of this video. I really, really appreciate it. Everyone have a great day. And once again, thank you so much for watching. Bye-bye.